What happens when a seasoned Hollywood veteran walks into what he thinks is a friendly late-night interview, only to find himself ambushed by a host with a personal vendetta? Tonight, we're diving into one of the most explosive moments in recent television history, where Eric Roberts discovered that Stephen Colbert had been sitting on some very disturbing accusations and decided to blindside him on live television. Before we get into this incredible breakdown, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really motivated Colbert's attack. Because what you're about to see will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about late-night television. The Late Show stage was set like any other Tuesday evening, with Stephen Colbert adjusting his tie and shuffling through his notes with that familiar smirk. Eric Roberts walked out to the usual applause, waving to the audience with the confident stride of someone who had done this dance 1,000 times before. He settled into the guest chair, completely unaware that Colbert had spent the better part of the afternoon crafting what could only be described as a character assassination disguised as an interview. "Eric Roberts, ladies and gentlemen," Colbert announced to the crowd, his voice carrying that trademark late-night host enthusiasm that somehow always felt just a little too manufactured. "Thank you for being here, Eric. I have to say, you look great for someone who's been through, well, let's call them some interesting times lately." Roberts raised an eyebrow, his smile faltering just slightly. "Interesting times, Stephen. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I've been working steadily. Got some great projects coming up." "Oh, I'm sure you do," Colbert replied, leaning back in his chair with an expression that was part amusement, part predator sizing up prey. "But before we talk about your future projects, I think we need to address some things from your past. Some allegations that have recently come to light." The audience sensed the shift in energy immediately. Robert's posture straightened, his hands gripping the armrests of his chair. "Allegations? Stephen, what exactly are you talking about? Because if there's something specific you want to discuss, maybe you should have mentioned it to my publicist beforehand." Colbert's grin widened, and he pulled out a manila folder from beneath his desk with theatrical flair. "Oh, Eric, where's the fun in that? You see, I've been doing some digging, and I've discovered some very interesting stories about your behavior on various film sets over the years. Stories that paint a picture of someone who might not be the consummate professional he pretends to be." "Stephen, I'm going to stop you right there," Roberts said, his voice taking on a warning tone. "I don't know what game you think you're playing, but I came here to promote my work, not to be subjected to some kind of tabloid ambush." "Ambush?" Colbert laughed, a sound that somehow managed to be both jovial and menacing. "Eric, this is journalism. This is what happens when public figures are held accountable for their actions. Now, let me ask you about the incident on the set of your 2019 independent film, where multiple crew members reported that you had what they described as violent outbursts." Robert's face flushed red, his jaw clenching visibly. "Those are lies, Stephen. Complete fabrications, and you know it. Those reports were debunked months ago, and frankly, I'm appalled that you would bring up discredited gossip on national television." "Discredited?" Colbert's eyebrows shot up in mock surprise. "That's interesting because I have signed affidavits from 3 different crew members right here in this folder. Would you like me to read them on air?" The studio audience had gone completely silent, the tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. Roberts leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, but the microphones picked up every word. "Stephen, I want you to listen to me very carefully. If you read those documents on television, you will be repeating defamatory statements that have already been proven false in court. I will sue you, this network, and everyone involved in this production." Colbert seemed to relish the threat, his smile never wavering. "Oh, Eric, threats now. How very telling. You know, for someone who claims these allegations are false, you certainly seem rattled by the possibility of them being discussed publicly." "I'm rattled because you're attempting to destroy my reputation with lies," Roberts shot back, his voice rising despite his obvious attempts to maintain control. "This isn't journalism, Stephen. This is a hit job, and I want to know who put you up to it." "Who put me up to it?" Colbert repeated, feigning confusion. "Eric, nobody put me up to anything. This is simply what happens when people start asking questions about the real Eric Roberts. The Eric Roberts who allegedly showed up to set intoxicated, who reportedly made inappropriate comments to female cast members, who supposedly threatened a director with physical violence." Roberts stood up abruptly, his chair rolling backward. "That's enough, Stephen. You're making statements that are not only false, but potentially criminal. I have witnesses. I have documentation. and I have lawyers who will be very interested in this conversation. Sit down, Eric, Colbert said, his tone suddenly turning cold and authoritative. We're not finished here. You accepted this interview. You're going to see it through. Unless, of course, you have something to hide. Something to hide? Robert's voice cracked with indignation. Stephen, the only thing I have to hide is my amazement at how low you're willing to sink for ratings. This is beneath you, beneath this show, and beneath basic human decency. Colbert shuffled through his papers with deliberate slowness, clearly enjoying every moment of Robert's discomfort. You know what I find fascinating, Eric? Your immediate defensiveness, your anger. Most innocent people, when faced with false accusations, they laugh them off. They provide evidence to the contrary. They don't threaten lawsuits and storm around the studio. Most innocent people, Robert said, his voice shaking with barely controlled rage, don't get ambushed on national television by someone they trusted. Most innocent people don't have to defend themselves against a talk show host who's decided to play prosecutor, judge, and jury all at once. The cameras kept rolling as Roberts remained standing, his chest heaving with the effort of controlling his temper. Colbert, meanwhile, seemed to be enjoying every second of the chaos he had orchestrated, casually flipping through his folder like he was reading the morning newspaper. Eric, please sit down, Colbert said with mock concern. You're making our audience uncomfortable. They came here for entertainment, not to watch a grown man have a meltdown. A meltdown? Roberts laughed bitterly. Stephen, what you're witnessing isn't a meltdown. It's a man who's finally seeing you for what you really are. A bully with a platform hiding behind the guise of comedy and journalism. Colbert's expression hardened for just a moment before the practiced smile returned. Strong words from someone who's been accused of bullying behavior himself. Tell me, Eric, when you allegedly grabbed that assistant director by the shirt and screamed in his face, was that you standing up for yourself, too? Robert slowly sat back down, but his posture remained rigid, coiled like a spring, ready to snap. That never happened, Stephen. And the fact that you keep saying allegedly while clearly believing every word tells me everything I need to know about your journalistic integrity. My journalistic integrity? Colbert leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. Eric, let me tell you about integrity. Integrity is not covering up for powerful men who think they can treat people however they want just because they have a famous last name. The mention of his family name hit Roberts like a physical blow. His face went pale, then flushed red again. Leave my family out of this, Stephen. Whatever sick obsession you have with me, you keep my family's name out of your mouth. Obsession. Colbert's laugh was sharp and cruel. Eric, you give yourself too much credit. This isn't about obsession. This is about accountability. You see, I've been in this business long enough to know that certain people get passes they don't deserve simply because of who they're related to or how long they've been around. Robert stood up again, this time taking a step toward Colbert's desk. You want to talk about passes, Stephen? Let's talk about the pass you're giving yourself right now. You're assassinating someone's character on live television based on unsubstantiated rumors, and you're acting like you're doing the world a service. Sit down, Eric, Colbert repeated. But this time, there was a note of genuine concern in his voice as Roberts continued to advance. Security. We might need you over here. Security. Robert stopped in his tracks, incredulous. You ambush me with lies, attack my reputation, drag my family name through the mud, and now you're calling security. Stephen, you are truly something else. The audience was completely silent now, many of them looking genuinely uncomfortable as they watched what was supposed to be light entertainment turn into something much darker and more personal. Colbert recovered his composure quickly, gesturing for Roberts to return to his seat. Eric, I think you're misunderstanding what's happening here. I'm simply asking you questions that any journalist would ask. If you have nothing to hide, then answer them. If I have nothing to hide, Robert's voice rose to nearly a shout. Stephen, the burden of proof isn't on me to disprove your lies. You're the one making accusations without evidence. You're the one who clearly had this planned from the moment I walked through that door. Plan. Colbert tilted his head with feigned innocence. Eric, I'm a talk show host. Of course, I plan my interviews. That's what preparation looks like. Preparation doesn't involve setting traps for your guests. Roberts shot back. Preparation doesn't involve digging up discredited gossip and presenting it as fact. What you've done here tonight isn't preparation. It's premeditation. Colbert's smile became predatory again. You know what, Eric? I think our audience deserves to hear exactly what kind of person you really are. Let me read from this first affidavit. It says here that on March 15th, you arrived on set clearly under the influence of alcohol. And when the assistant director asked you to wait in your trailer until you were fit to work, you became verbally abusive and made threats. Roberts lunged forward, reaching for the papers in Colbert's hands. Give me those documents, Stephen. If you're going to read them, I have the right to see them first. Colbert pulled the folder away, clutching it to his chest theatrically. Oh no, Eric. These stay right here with me. You had your chance to address these allegations privately, but you chose to come on my show instead. I chose to come on your show to promote my work, Robert said through gritted teeth. I had no idea you had turned into some kind of tabloid journalist with a personal vendetta. Personal vendetta? Colbert's eyebrows shot up. Eric, what makes you think this is personal? Could it be because you know these allegations are true and you're afraid of what else might come out? Roberts pointed an accusatory finger at Colbert. You want to know what's personal, Stephen? The way you're enjoying this, the way you're savoring every moment of my discomfort. This isn't about justice or accountability. This is about you getting your kicks from tearing someone down on national television. I'm enjoying holding you accountable. Yes, Colbert admitted with a shrug. I enjoy it when powerful people who think they're untouchable finally get asked the hard questions. Hard questions. Roberts laughed bitterly. Stephen, these aren't questions. These are accusations wrapped up in question marks. There's a difference between journalism and what you're doing here tonight. Colbert leaned back in his chair, clearly relishing the control he had over the situation. Well, Eric, if you don't like my questions, you're free to leave anytime. Of course, walking out would look pretty suspicious to our viewers, wouldn't it? Robert stared at him for a long moment, his jaw working silently as he processed the implicit threat. So, that's it, isn't it, Stephen? You've set this up so that no matter what I do, you win. If I stay, you get to continue your character assassination. If I leave, you get to tell your audience that I ran away because I'm guilty. I don't know what you're talking about, Eric, Colbert said with exaggerated innocence. I'm just here to have a conversation. You're the one making this difficult. Robert sat back down heavily, but something in his demeanor had changed. The panic and desperation were being replaced by something colder, more calculating. He studied Colbert's face for a long moment before speaking. You know what, Stephen? You're absolutely right. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk about why you really brought me here tonight. Colbert's confident smirk faltered slightly. I brought you here to discuss your career, Eric, and these very serious allegations that have come to light. No, Robert said, his voice suddenly calm and steady. You brought me here because someone told you to. Someone with enough influence to make you risk your reputation and your show's credibility on unsubstantiated gossip. So, let me ask you a question for once, Stephen. Who's pulling your strings? The color drained from Colbert's face. Nobody's pulling my strings, Eric. I make my own editorial decisions. Editorial decisions? Roberts laughed, but there was no humor in it. Stephen, you just admitted on live television that you enjoy tearing people down. That doesn't sound like editorial judgment. That sounds like personal satisfaction. So, I'll ask you again. Who told you to do this? Colbert shuffled his papers nervously, his previous confidence evaporating. Eric, I think you're being paranoid. Sometimes journalists investigate stories because it's their job, not because of some conspiracy. Conspiracy? Roberts leaned forward, his eyes locked on Colbert's. Stephen, the only conspiracy here is the one you've orchestrated tonight. You've spent months collecting gossip, coordinating with people who have grudges against me and planning this ambush. That's not journalism. That's a coordinated attack. I resent the implication that I would coordinate anything, Colbert said. But his voice lacked its earlier conviction. These sources came to me independently. Independently? Robert smiled for the first time all evening, but it was a predator's smile. Stephen, do you want to know what I find interesting? Every single one of these alleged incidents you're referencing happened on productions where I was replaced at the last minute by the same actor. The same actor who happens to be represented by the same agency that just signed a major development deal with your network. The studio went dead silent. Colbert's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Eric, I don't know what you're trying to imply, but I'm not implying anything, Stephen. I'm stating facts. Facts that I've had my investigators looking into for weeks. Ever since I heard through the grapevine that someone was shopping around stories about me. Facts that show a very clear pattern of career sabotage orchestrated by people who stood to benefit from my reputation being destroyed. Colbert's hands were visibly shaking now as he tried to maintain his composure. Even if that were true, which I'm not saying it is, it doesn't change the fact that these allegations exist. You're right. The allegations do exist. Roberts agreed. Allegations that were fabricated by people who were paid to fabricate them. Allegations that you knew were false when you decided to air them tonight. Stephen, you didn't just ambush me. You participated in a criminal conspiracy to destroy my career. That's ridiculous. Colbert sputtered, but sweat was beading on his forehead. I would never knowingly air false information. Wouldn't you? Roberts reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his own folder. Because I have signed statements from 2 of your alleged sources admitting they were paid to lie. I have bank records showing payments from shell companies connected to the agency I mentioned. And I have recordings of phone conversations where your producers explicitly discussed how to make this look like legitimate journalism. Colbert stared at the folder in Roberts' hands like it was a loaded weapon. Those could be fabricated. They could be. Roberts nodded. Just like your allegations could be fabricated. But here's the difference, Stephen. I'm not going to air my evidence on television like some kind of vigilante. I'm going to let the FBI handle it when I file my complaint tomorrow morning. FBI. Colbert's voice cracked on the word. Oh yes, Stephen. Because what you've participated in tonight isn't just defamation. It's racketeering. It's a conspiracy involving multiple parties across state lines to destroy someone's livelihood through false statements. That's a federal crime. Robert stood up slowly, his folder still in his hand. You see, Stephen, while you were busy enjoying yourself at my expense, I was gathering real evidence, real documentation, real proof of criminal activity. And tomorrow morning, every single person involved in this scheme is going to find out what actual accountability looks like. Colbert was struggling to find words. His earlier smugness completely evaporated. Eric, even if there were some misunderstanding about sources, that doesn't mean. Misunderstanding. Roberts cut him off. Stephen, there's no misunderstanding here. You knowingly aired false information as part of a coordinated attack on my reputation and career. You did it with malice. You did it with premeditation. And you did it on national television. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a felony. The audience was completely stunned. Many of them looking back and forth between the 2 men like they were watching a tennis match. The tables had completely turned and everyone in the studio could feel it. Ladies and gentlemen, Roberts addressed the audience directly, ignoring Colbert entirely. What you've witnessed tonight is why we have laws against defamation and conspiracy. What you've seen is what happens when people in positions of power think they can destroy others without consequences. But there are always consequences. Roberts turned back to Colbert, who was now visibly sweating and frantically shuffling through his papers. Stephen, I want you to remember this moment. I want you to remember how it felt to think you had all the power and then realize that you were just a pawn in someone else's game. Because tomorrow, when the federal agents come knocking, you're going to have to decide whether you want to be a witness or a defendant. Eric, please. Colbert's voice was barely above a whisper. Can we discuss this privately? Privately. Roberts laughed. Stephen, you made this public when you decided to ambush me on national television. You wanted a public confrontation, and now you have one. The only difference is that you're not the one in control anymore. Roberts headed toward the exit, then stopped and turned back one final time. Oh, and Stephen, when your lawyers call my lawyers tomorrow, make sure they understand that I have documentation of everything. Every payment, every phone call, every fabricated statement. Your career isn't just over. It's about to become evidence in a federal investigation. With that, Roberts walked off the stage, leaving Colbert sitting alone at his desk, staring into the cameras with the expression of a man who had just realized he had been completely outmaneuvered. The audience sat in stunned silence, unsure whether to applaud or call the police. So there you have it, folks. One of the most shocking reversals in television history, where the hunter became the hunted, and the ambusher got ambushed. Make sure to subscribe to Shoaib Buzzer Stories for more incredible stories like this one. Comment below with your thoughts. Do you think Colbert will survive the legal fallout from this disaster, or is his career officially over?